You're watching Phantom Astronaut's Night Terrors, where ancient folklore takes on new life to remind us that the stories meant to frighten children have a way of lingering in the shadows. Tonight, we delve into the unsettling legend of Père Fouettard, the French companion to St. Nicholas. Unlike the jolly gift giver, Père Fouettard's purpose is far more sinister, a punisher of wicked children with no mercy to spare. If this tale leaves you looking over your shoulder, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Check the links in the description for more ways to support us. Now, let us explore the tale of Père Fouettard. The small village of Metz had always been a quiet place, its cobbled streets and slanted rooftops picturesque under the December snow. But as the feast of St. Nicholas approached, a hush fell over the townsfolk, a nervous quiet that felt almost unnatural. Parents ushered their children indoors before the sun dipped below the horizon, and doors were bolted tight. It wasn't the cold they feared. It was something older, darker. They called him Père Fouettard. Mathilde knew the name well. Every child in Metz did. The stories of the whip-bearing figure who followed St. Nicholas were whispered in kitchens and schoolyards, a shadowy warning to those who misbehaved. While St. Nicholas brought gifts to the good, Père Fouettard punished the wicked. Some said he simply lashed the naughty children with his whip. Others claimed he stuffed them into his sack, taking them away to a fate too terrible to name. Matilda had always dismissed the stories as nonsense. At 13, she considered herself too old for childish fears. What was there to be afraid of? A ragged man with a stick? No, Matilda knew the real threats came from hunger and the biting cold that turned the village fountain to stone. But that December, something felt different. It began with the whispers, hushed, hurried conversations between the adults that stopped whenever Matilda or her younger brother, Louis, came near. They talked about tracks in the snow too large to belong to any man, about livestock found torn apart in their pens, about cries heard at night that didn't sound entirely human. And always they spoke the name in reverent, fearful tones. Père Fouettard. Mathilde scoffed at the stories, though she couldn't deny the unease that prickled at the back of her neck. Louis, however, was terrified. At 7, he still clung to the old tales, and he refused to go to bed without a candle burning beside him. He won't come, Matilda had told him the night before the feast, her voice firm as she tucked him into bed. There's no such thing as Père Fouettard. Louise's wide eyes glistened with tears. But what if I've been bad? What if he knows? You've been good, she said, her voice softening despite herself. Now, sleep. That night, the snow fell thick and fast, muffling the world in a suffocating silence. Matilda lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the dim glow of the hearth casting flickering shadows across the room. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters, and for a moment, she thought she heard something else. A faint, rhythmic sound, like the crack of a whip. She told herself it was just the wind. The next morning, the feast of St. Nicholas dawned gray and cold. Mathilde woke to the sound of Louis crying, his small voice rising in panic. She bolted out of bed and found him standing by the fireplace, his face pale. "What is it?" she asked. Kneeling beside him, Louis pointed to the hearth, where the remnants of their stockings hung. Matilda's heart sank. One of the stockings, the one Louis had hung with such care the night before, was gone. The other was torn, the fabric shredded as though by claws. "He came," Louis whispered, his voice trembling. "Père Fouettard." Mathilde shook her head, trying to ignore the icy knot forming in her stomach. "It was just a rat," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Or a fox." Louis didn't believe her, and neither did she. The day passed in tense silence. The villagers gathered for the feast, but the usual joy and laughter were subdued, overshadowed by a sense of dread. As night fell, the families returned to their homes, their doors bolted tight once again. Mathilde and Louis sat by the fire, the only light in the small room, coming from the flickering flames. Louis clutched a wooden toy soldier, his knuckles white, while Mathilde worked on darning the remains of the stockings. The first knock came just after midnight. It was soft at first, almost polite, but it made both children freeze. Mathilde set down her needle, her heart pounding. The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. "Don't answer it," Louis whispered, his voice barely audible. Mathilde nodded, her eyes fixed on the door. The knock came a third time, followed by a low, guttural voice that sent chills down her spine. "Mathilde! Louis! Open the door!" Her breath caught in her throat. The voice was rough and deep, with an edge of cruelty that made her skin crawl. She grabbed Louis's hand and pulled him close, her heart racing. "Who's there?" she called, though she already knew. The voice chuckled, a dark, rasping sound. "You know who." Mathilde's mind raced. The latch was secure, the windows shuttered, but the voice seemed to seep through the walls, wrapping around them like smoke. "I won't open it," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You're not real." The laughter stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a scraping sound, like nails dragging across wood, filled the room. Louis whimpered, burying his face in Mathilde's side. "You've been bad, Mathilde," the voice said, softer now, almost coaxing. "I've come to collect what's owed." "No!" Mathilde shouted, her voice breaking. "We've been good!" The fire flickered, the flames dimming, as a cold wind swept through the room. The scraping grew louder, more frantic, and the door shuddered as though something massive was pressing against it. Mathilde grabbed the iron poker from the hearth, holding it out in front of her like a weapon. "Leave us alone!" she screamed. The door creaked, the wood splintering, and for a terrible moment, Mathilde thought it would give way. But then the scraping stopped. The cold wind vanished, and the fire roared back to life. The silence was deafening. Mathilde and Louis stayed by the hearth until dawn, the poker still clutched in her trembling hands. When the first light of morning crept through the shutters, they dared to open the door. The snow outside was undisturbed, save for a single set of footprints, large and heavy, leading away from the house and disappearing into the woods. The villagers found no sign of Père Fouettard, but the stories lingered. Mathilde never forgot that night, and every year after, she made sure Louis left his stockings by the fire, filled with small gifts, just in case. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey into the legend of Père Fouettard. If tonight's episode of Phantom Astronaut's Night Terrors left you with a shiver, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Don't forget to check the links in the description for more ways to support us. This has been Phantom Astronauts Nocturnal Tales. I'll see you out there.